Welcome, GC 365. I am James. I'm the Lake Stevens campus pastor, and I have a special guest here with me because you don't know who this is yet. Well, maybe you do because, you guys are astute. But this is Ben Robbins. Ben,
Hello.
Who are you?
I am the worship pastor now at Lake Stevens.
He is. He is our newly hired worship pastor. He's been here at this point for about a month, and it is a great fit, hopefully, for us as we are trying to push forward and hit Lake Stevens for the Jesus. Well, today we're talking in 1 Kings. If you guys have been following along, you should be because you're watching this. Hopefully, you're following along. In 1 Kings chapter 12.
Right.
So right now we are in the mess that has been created because Solomon did not talk to his children about being good people, right?
Right.
So you've got Jeroboam, you've got Rehoboam, you got this split kingdom. It is just crazy. And that's the background context. But what we're going to talk about today is a prophet. So this prophet, do you guys remember who the prophet was?
His name?
Yes.
I don't remember.
I don't remember his name either, so that's okay. That's why I was asking you. So that you're right. It didn't say it in the Bible. It says a prophet comes to Jeroboam, right? It goes to Jeroboam because Jeroboam actually started a revolt, and he's not even in the line of David or Solomon. He just took over because Rehoboam basically said, I'm going to tax people until it hurts. So then he started this revolt. Well, now this prophet comes because Jeroboam is not a great king either. He's setting up idols and doing all this crazy stuff. And he comes and he tells him off, right? Do you remember some of the stuff he told him?
Yeah, he was saying, if you, let me get my notes here. Sorry, I'm totally butchering this thing.
No, you're fine. That's the whole point, so that people can see us. In fact, there's a few where I want to just be like, you just lost all your notes. That's awesome. We're just going to wing it now for you. But he comes to him and he says, God is telling you you're going to lose your kingdom. And then the king says, no, you're not. Seize this man. And then his hand freezes like this, right?
Point, right?
And pointing until he leaves. And as he's leaving, God told him to do one thing. Do you remember what that one thing was? Don't do something. He said not to do something.
Oh, don't stay with anyone.
Don't stay with anyone.
Go home a different way, too.
Go home a different way, and don't eat or drink anything. So those are the only things he told him to do. Basically, he's saying, just don't stop. Do what you're supposed to do, and then go home.
Yep.
And that's all he had to do. And on the way, right, he encounters an old prophet, and this old prophet basically tricks him. He says, no, God told me this morning, you're supposed to come home with me, and you're supposed to eat with me. And so this prophet listens to this other prophet. He's led astray, essentially.
Right.
He's not supported because, one, the king wants him dead, but then also this prophet tricks him, and rather than listening to his own instructions that God has given, clearly gave him, he follows this man and eats with him, and then, of course, he dies, right? A lion gets him. But the lion doesn't eat him. The lion just kills him and then lays next to him.
Hangs out.
Which is kind of weird, right? It's kind of creepy when you think of, if you're walking by the zoo and there's just a lion, it's just laying next to a dead zebra, not eating it. Wouldn't that be kind of weird?
It'd be a little creepy. I think he was supposed to be found that way, maybe.
Well, yes, it was scriptural, right? And so that's what happens. But as I was thinking about that, I was thinking, man, there's a difference between being supported and not being supported, right? I mean, we know that feeling. I'm sure you guys watching know this feeling as well, too. That when you're supported, it's almost like the burden is eased, right? Even though you may still have to do hard work, knowing that your boss or your coworker or your spouse or your family member has your back just creates a moral lift almost, right?
Right.
And I wanted to ask you, have you ever experienced a time where you didn't feel supported?
Yeah. I mean, there's been times definitely where, and if I ever never feel supported, right? Then I feel like what happens mostly is that truth isn't spoken into me, which I think is one of the main things that the prophet needed to hear, right? When he was going to that land, he needed someone to remind him of the truth of what he needed to do. Right. And so no one was there to guide him in that way. So I think that's one of the biggest things I find. Like if I don't have truth spoken into me continually, then I start thinking a different way or doubting certain things. So having that support is really important. Okay.
Now, I didn't tell you I was going to ask you this, but what if, so let's say you're that prophet and God tells you to do something, right? God says, Ben, I want you to do this for the campus of Lake Stevens. And God is so clear to you. And then I come to you, obviously, I'm a pastor as well too. And so I come to you and I'm like, no, let's do the opposite. And in your heart, you're like, no, God told me to do this. What would you do?
I think we'd have to discuss,
That's
right?
a tough one, right?
Yeah. I think it'd just be an ongoing discussion, right? We'd have to figure out together, because that necessarily isn't a scriptural truth or not truth, right? So we have to figure out, what what God's calling us together, right? I feel like having mixed messages is something that can happen a lot, right?
Well, it does
God
happen
told
a lot.
me this, and
yeah, for
God
sure,
told me this,
it happens a lot.
Right.
I'm pretty sure. I've had friends that broke up with girls because God told me not to. And so back in college and in high school, that's just this is God told me we're not supposed to be together, right? And you hear that dumb stuff. But I just thought about this in this context, like. It would be the same as if I felt like, God needs me to go a certain direction. And Pastor Dan comes to me and says, no, go the different direction. And in my heart, I feel like this is what I have to do. And likewise with you, you're my subordinate, right? I'm your supervisor. And I tell you, no, I want you to go this direction. And you're like, well, no, God clearly is telling me to go here. And I'm in the wrong. What do you do, right? You can get eaten by a lion if you don't listen to God. So what does that look like? And I felt for this poor prophet. This poor prophet that was trying to do what's right, but he strayed from conviction. Yep. And then you go to the New Testament. We're going to switch gears here. We're going to go to the New Testament. We are in Saul's conversion. He's just been converted. He is preaching the gospel. He's been baptized. He's super pumped and excited, but all the disciples are scared of him.
Right.
Why would they be scared of him?
Well, he was just, setting out to murder them.
Yes. And murder and arrest them,
now
right?
He's preaching Jesus, the same person he was trying to deny and
exactly
push away. So it's the exact opposite thing. So they're not trusting him because it's a total 180.
I get it too, right? You get it. I mean, I'm sure you would get it if someone was trying to murder you and all of a sudden they're like, hey, can we hang out and have like lunch or brunch or something, right? Let's get our, Jewish Passover on. You're going to be like, nah, you tried to murder me or arrest me for like months. And one of my best friends, Stephen, you had killed. I'm going to keep you over here too. And I get it, right? You get the disciples and the apostles, they were just feeling that tension. But then someone comes to the rescue. Do you remember who it was? Barnabas, right? Barney comes to the rescue. Good old Barney. He becomes Saul, who later becomes Paul's mentor, essentially. And then Paul becomes Timothy's mentor. So you see this mentorship process. And you see the opposite, where you see supportive leadership.
Right.
But what I love about this, and this is something that just popped into my head when I was preparing for this, is Barnabas was not the first person to support Saul's conversion.
Right. Ananias was the first.
Ananias was the first to support his conversion because after he was blinded, God talked to Ananias. Ananias brought him home, introduced him to other disciples. And then that's where he learned how to preach and teach and get baptized. He got baptized in Ananias' home, not Barney's home, which I was like, wow, okay. So it took the second person to support before the other apostles were like, okay. Ananias, we don't know. Maybe he was a wild card. We don't know. Barney comes in. Okay. We'll talk to him now. And of course, the greatest probably, spiritual revolution in the early Christian time happens at this point, right? You have Paul that just goes and just plants church after church, and this explosion happens. So here's the inverse, being supported.
Yep.
What is that like? I mean, obviously, I kind of touched on it a little bit between unsupported and supported. How big of a deal is it to be supported?
It's a super big deal. Yeah, it helps remind you of your purpose. I think is a big portion.
Purpose,
right? Yeah. It gives you a goal, right? So if you kind of feel like you're losing your way, you kind of put you right back on track, right? You know where you're headed now because you have someone with you, or at least one person that's headed in the same direction that supports you that way. And just like in the Old Testament, you had someone speaking truth. He didn't need someone to speak truth to him. Barnabas spoke truth for Paul, like and in defense of him too, which is sometimes what we need as well. So.
And what I love too is he didn't just speak truth. He embraced truth, right? He brought him in. It was an action. It wasn't just, you guys should let him into your house. I give him my stamp of Barney approval. He didn't just say that. He brought him to the disciples. There was an action element. So as we kind of close this out, as we're closing out this video, as we're closing out this message today, I want you guys to think about what it means to be supported and what it means to be unsupported. And we all love to be supportive. We do. We love that feeling of people getting on board and being your biggest cheerleader. So my encouragement to you as we close out this video is, who can you be the biggest cheerleader for? Who are the people in your life that you can encourage in such a way that God absolutely speaks through you into them? I guarantee you, every single person watching, listening right now, you have an opportunity. We all have influence. You have an opportunity for God to speak into you. Use that opportunity, use that voice, use those moments, use those actions to embrace and to bring people into the presence of God, because that's what Jesus called us to do. Have a great day, and we will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.